Our freight is customer routed. It's a dreaded objection that freight brokers get way too often when prospecting shippers. What's the deal? What does that even mean? Well, in this video, we're going to dig into what this means and how you can handle this common objection. Thanks for checking out the Freight 360 YouTube channel. I'm Nate Cross, and today we're talking objections. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so YouTube can get us in front of more people just like you. And please check out the sponsors in the description box to help support this channel. If you'd like to learn more about Freight 360 and our training, check out the Freight Broker Basics course using the link below. First, let's clarify what customer routed freight means. When a shipper tells you that their freight is customer routed, it simply means that the task of setting up the transportation of their product lies with their customer, rather than doing it themselves. Here's a simple breakdown. Supplier routed freight. The manufacturer or supplier of the goods handles the shipping. They book their own trucks, or they use a freight broker to book trucks for them. This is the common type of prospect that we seek out as freight brokers to gain new business from. Next is the customer routed freight. In this case, the receiver of the goods would handle the shipping. In other words, whoever's buying the goods from the supplier would book their own trucks to pick up the freight and deliver it to them. For example, if a company produces bottled water and sells it, they would have two options. Option one, they can find and book trucks themselves and include that cost into the purchase price to their customer. They might use a mix of asset-based carriers and freight brokers to ensure that their water is picked up and delivered to their customer. Option two, they tell their customer to find and book their own trucks to pick up the cases of water. In this case, they wouldn't need to worry about finding a truck. They would just need to be there to make sure the water gets loaded onto the truck that their customer booked and scheduled for them. Now, is it fact or are they bluffing you? Well, some companies do truly have customer routed freight. Others will just simply say this when it's not true just to get a freight broker off the phone. Their message is meant to say, I truly don't have any business that I could give you even if I wanted to. Novice freight brokers will take this as pure truth, and the conversation ends right there. They hang up and they move on. On the other hand, great freight brokers know that there's a couple of possible outcomes here. They're either telling the truth, and you can pivot the conversation one way, or they're just bluffing, and you might be able to get past this objection. So, what types of questions can you ask? Here are some that might get you more insight into what's really going on. You can say something like, that's great, so you don't have to ever deal with any of the headaches of late trucks or carriers canceling on you last minute. Or, wow, that's awesome. So if something goes wrong with the pickup, you don't have to deal with that. These questions confirm what they're telling you, and it might even throw them off. They probably expected you to accept their objection as fact and move on, but you pivoted and actually threw them off guard. This can be referred to as a pattern interrupt, and if they're bluffing, they might reveal the truth to you simply because they didn't expect you to respond that way. If they're not bluffing, the phrasing can still solicit a response that gives you more information about what happens when things do go wrong with customer routed shipments. Next, you can inquire about inbound freight. If their outbound freight is truly scheduled by their customers, they likely have inbound shipments that they're responsible for. Ask something like, I totally get it, you don't book your outbound shipments, but what about your inbound freight? Is that something that you guys handle? Or how is your inbound freight managed? We confirm what they told us, but then inquire about something else as a pivot from the first objection. We didn't just end the conversation. We asked more questions to try and figure out what is really going on. If they tell you that their outbound and inbound freight are both customer routed, it's probably a bluff. And you can respond with something lighthearted like, wow, your job sounds pretty awesome. I must have picked the wrong side of this business. Some customers will stick to their guns and not budge about having any control of any shipments. But others, they might eventually reveal that they do manage some shipments, either outbound or inbound. The situational questions that we covered earlier are great for revealing this. You might find out that if their freight is truly customer routed, they'll step in at the last minute if a customer routed truck cancels on them. You might also find out that only some of their freight is customer routed and they actually do book some outbound trucks for other shipment. The big takeaway here is that you shouldn't just end the conversation right away. Instead, ask more questions to learn more about how their company operates. Some customers will realize that you're not just a novice freight broker and they'll give you a chance at a real conversation. After several follow-up questions, you might get a response like, hey, we usually just say that to get brokers off the phone because we get hammered with calls from you guys all day. Or, hey, you clearly know your stuff. Give me a call back in a couple months when we reevaluate our shipping department. These are just examples, and you can get a ton of different responses, but you are keeping the conversation going, which is the point here. Now, if they truly are customer routed, or you know that they aren't, but they won't budge and drop the bluff, this is all part of the game in freight brokering. You're not going to close every customer when you make a prospecting call, not even close. It's a numbers game. And the goal here is to create as many relationships and conversations as you can and build those over time until you gain their trust, and they might give you a chance to quote and run your first load for them. So by understanding and handling the customer routed freight objection, you can turn a seemingly dead-end conversation into a valuable opportunity. So keep refining your approach, ask insightful questions, and keep building relationships. That will help you find success in your freight brokerage business. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.